Hello and welcome to Tommy Surfs. Today is a surfboard review of the Firewire FRK Plus. However, this is going to be part one of two because the only place I've been able to surf it so far is the wavepool. So part two will be in the ocean, hopefully in different conditions. So the Firewire FRK Plus is a high-performance board made for an intermediate to advanced surfer. It uses what they call the Ibolic technology, and according to Firewire, it's the technology of the future. And I think they intend to get rid of their LFT and replace all the boards in that technology with this new Ibolic technology. So the Ibolic technology is the marriage of the LFT technology and the helium technology. So it takes the best qualities of both, puts them together. Now, the way it gets its name is the I stands for the I-shaped stringer that it has, and the bolic obviously is for the parabolic rails. So the parabolic rails come from the helium technology, the I-beam, or the stringer comes from the LFT. So now something that really surprised me was how light the FRK Plus was in this new technology. I had bought the board and it was delivered with a mashup 5.4 in helium, and then my FRK Plus was a 5.8. When I got done unwrapping him, I was really surprised at how much lighter the FRK Plus was. So I normally don't cover the construction of a board or the design of a board too often. I just feel like other people do it better than I do. So mostly I focus on the evaluation of how something surfs for me. But in this case, the board was so light, I almost feel like I do have to kind of discuss it. The FRK Plus, it has the glass on bottom, I believe 2 4-ounces. It goes with a 1.5 pound EPS instead of a 1 pound EPS. So that seems a little heavier, but it only has the composite skin on top. And then it does more glass. So the great thing about that is it has the durability of a helium on top, but then it shaves off some of the weight on bottom. On top of that, it gets rid of the paulownia wood, balsa wood rails and replaces it with a high density foam, as well as a stringer is a high density foam. Now talking about the concaves, it is a single to double. And I must remind you, this is a Dan Mann board. And I believe that's kind of his like signature, right? The Dominator, Dominator 2, Spitfire. Interestingly enough, if you look at the Dominator 2, it looks very similar to the FRK Plus. One of my thoughts was, God, I wish he would make a new version of the Dominator 2, like a D2 Pro or something that was just narrower. FRK Plus. Here's a comparison of the outlines. Here's a comparison of the concaves, right? It's practically the same board, just leaner and meaner. Now, one more commonality of the two boards is that both boards have their wide point back from center. Now, my theory is that the reason why the Dominator was so popular, okay, is that for a beginner surfer, intermediate surfer, like all levels of intermediate, and maybe even some advanced, low-level advanced like myself, the reason why we love that board is because we had to buy the board bigger. So now what that does is it takes that wide point that's usually back from center, right, and pushes it forward. That board for a beginner, intermediate, and like myself, it just feels better. All the FRK for me is now, it's just a stretched out version of the Dominator 2. So by that, what I mean is if I were to surf the Dominator 2 in the performance volume that I want, I'd have to surf a 5.4. That board outline was too small. Wide point was way too far back. So when I was testing that board, I just remember thinking I want that volume, but I want it in a board that's, a 5.8. So bottom line is, if you have an FRK and you need more of a daily driver, kind of better in, I'm not going to say this is for soft waves, but softer waves. You just need a little bit more volume and width to your FRK. The FRK Plus is a great option. But also, if you are a fan of the Dominator, Dominator 2, and you find that, God, I would love a performance version of that board, right? Because that's actually a groveler. The FRK Plus is also that option. I found that the familiar feeling made the board very easy to adjust to. Now, typically, I don't do well on performance type rockers, but I heard Dan Mann say this, Kelly say this, as well as Chewy in some videos that I've watched, where they said that Dan Mann, the importance of where you place the fins relative to the rocker. So maybe it's not necessarily the rocker that I don't do well with. Maybe it's that relationship. And the fact that Dan Mann's boards all have probably the same relationship, I think that is why when I hopped on this board, even though it's more of a performance board, it just felt natural to me. I really, really liked it. So now, again, this is part 1 of part 2. When I get out on the ocean, I'll be able to test exactly where the board will start to not do well. You know, what size of the wave, how soft it has to be. But from a feeling standpoint, I'm really happy with this board. So again, this is part 1 of 2. My evaluation of the surfboard in the pool, as well as a general overview of the board. Part 2, hopefully I'll get some good waves and, you know, get the opportunity to take it out in the ocean and actually develop a full, well-rounded evaluation of it. As of right now, under the conditions of the pool, I really like the board. Again, it just felt super familiar, and I think it has to do with the fact that it has the same genetic source as the Dominator 2 Spitfire. They gave me the most amount of progression in the shortest amount of time in all of my progress of surfing over the years. When the waves get better, I got a really good feeling about this board. I bought this one at 25 liters, which is kind of my performance range, and I wanted it at the same height as my original Dominator, the one I loved, as well as my Spitfire. So shedding the volume. All right, like, subscribe, tell me what you think, and I'll get that part 2 out to you, hopefully, if Mother Nature cooperates.